The metal scraping sound came from the hallway. Elara pressed her back against the apartment door, her breath held tight in her chest. The heavy brass deadbolt, which she had locked, began to slide open with a slow, oily click. She looked down. A thin, silver wire, almost invisible against the carpet, was looped under the door, pulling the latch from the outside.
No, not again. Please, not tonight.
The ritual was starting. It hadn't started this way. 3 weeks earlier, Elara had seen the Ashworth Arms as a sanctuary. She was 27, a freelance graphic designer working from home, and had just finalized a draining separation. She needed a fresh start, far from the shared memories of her old downtown apartment. The Ashworth was pre-war brick, elegant, with a quiet courtyard, and suspiciously cheap for the neighborhood. The realtor, a woman who never quite met her eyes, had simply said the co-op board was very particular and preferred quiet, single tenants. Elara, quiet and eager, was approved instantly. The building itself was immaculate. The lobby smelled of lemon oil and old, polished brass. But the silence was heavy. It wasn't an empty silence. It was a waiting silence. Her neighbors were the strangest part. On the first day, an older woman, Mrs. Petrov, had met her by the elevator. She was dressed in a pristine 1950 era house address.
Welcome, dear. Apartment 7B. You are right on time.
Thank you. I'm Elara. It's a beautiful building.
Mrs. Petrov's smile didn't reach her eyes. They were a pale, flat gray.
We are all very stable here. The Ashworth provides. Just be sure to lock your door precisely at 8 p.m. The night air affects the old wiring.
The advice was strange, but Elara dismissed it as harmless eccentricity. She spent the first week unpacking. The apartment felt good, solid, until she noticed the changes. It started small. She always left her house keys in, the small ceramic bowl by the door. On the third day, she found them sitting on the kitchen counter, next to the sink. The next day, the antique painting she had hung in the hallway was perfectly level. She knew she had left it slightly crooked, intending to fix it later. She felt a cold prickle of unease. She was meticulous about her space. She started triple-checking the deadbolt before bed. But every morning, something new was different. A mug moved. A window she had closed was now open exactly 1 inch. It felt less like an intrusion and more like a correction, as if an unseen hand was tidying her life or preparing her space for something. Elara began to feel the heavy, watchful silence of the building. She started noticing the other tenants. They were all older, impeccably dressed, and unnervingly quiet. They moved through the hallways like ghosts, always nodding, always smiling that same flat, polite smile as Mrs. Petrov. She tried to engage the man in 5C, Mr. Abernathy, in the elevator.
Morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?
Mr. Abernathy, a thin man in a tweed suit, just looked at the brass numbers above the door.
The building provides good weather, yes. Are you settling in, 7B?
Yes, just fine. Although I keep finding things moved around in my apartment.
Mr. Abernathy's head turned, his movements slow and rigid, like a mannequin. His pale eyes met hers.
The Ashworth likes things just so. It's best to let it arrange things as it sees fit. It makes the transition easier for everyone.
The elevator doors opened, and he stepped out without another word. Transition? The nights grew worse. The corrections became more invasive. One night, she woke from a deep sleep, her heart pounding. She was certain she had fallen asleep on her left side, facing the wall. She was now on her back, her hands folded neatly on her chest, like a corpse. She jumped out of bed, a scream lodging in her throat. She ran to the living room. Her laptop, which she had left open on the coffee table, was now closed and stacked perfectly on top of her magazines.
Who was doing this? Who is in here?
She was losing her mind. She grabbed her phone to call the police, but she paused. What would she say? That someone broke in to level her paintings and fold her hands while she slept? She decided to search. She looked for hidden cameras, for openings, for anything. She found nothing. Until she looked in the kitchen pantry. Behind the canned goods, on the back wall, she found a small, circular hole, no bigger than a quarter, drilled through the plaster. It looked directly out into the building's main service shaft. She pressed her ear to it. At first, nothing. Then, a sound, a faint, rhythmic thump. It was slow, like a giant, sluggish heartbeat originating deep within the building's core. And then, a whisper. So quiet, she thought she imagined it.
7. Almost ready. Must be prepared.
Elara stumbled back, knocking over a can of beans. She covered her mouth. They were talking about her. 7B. She ran to the front door. She had to get out. She grabbed the deadbolt. It wouldn't turn. It was locked, just as she had left it. But it was also stuck, as if it were rusted shut from the outside. She pulled and twisted, her panic rising. It wouldn't budge. That's when she heard the sound that began the story, the faint, metallic scrape from the hallway carpet, right outside her door. She looked down at the peephole. A thin, silver wire, almost invisible, was being fed under the door. She watched, paralyzed, as it hooked onto the deadbolt latch from the inside. The wire went taut. With a heavy, oily click, the deadbolt slid back. The door was unlocked. Elara stumbled backward into her living room, her mind screaming. This wasn't a robbery. This was orchestrated. This was the transition Mr. Abernathy had mentioned. The front door slowly creaked open. It didn't swing wide. It opened just enough for a person to slip through.
Stay out! I've called the police. They're on their way.
It was a lie, but her voice echoed with genuine panic. The hallway outside was dimly lit by the antique brass fixtures. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, Mrs. Petrov stepped into the doorway. She was not wearing her 1,950 house dress. She was wearing a formal, dark velvet robe. Her pale, flat eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. She held a small, polished wooden box.
It is 8 p.m., 7B. It is time for the arrangement. Please do not be difficult. It only makes the air heavy.
Behind her, Elara could see Mr. Abernathy and 2 other tenants. They were also in robes, standing silently in the hall like a receiving line. They were all smiling that same vacant, polite smile.
What are you talking about? Get out of my apartment.
Mrs. Petrov took a slow, gliding step inside. The smell of lemon oil and old brass washed into the room, thick and cloying.
This is not your apartment, dear. You are its occupant. The Ashworth provides. The Ashworth must also be provided for. This is the arrangement.
She raised the small wooden box. Elara looked past her, at the open doorway. Escape. She was faster than them. She faked a step toward the kitchen, then bolted, pushing past Mrs. Petrov's surprisingly strong grip and shoving Mr. Abernathy aside. She burst into the hallway and stopped dead. The hallway wasn't the hallway. The walls were gone. The doors to the other apartments were gone. She was standing on the roof of the building, the cold night air whipping her hair. The city skyline glittered miles away. She spun around. The doorway to her apartment, 7B, was still there. A lone doorframe standing impossibly on the tar paper roof. Mrs. Petrov and the others stood within it, bathed in the warm light of her apartment, watching her patiently.
How did...
The Ashworth likes things just so. The transition must be completed, 7B. The previous tenant was uncooperative. He made the wiring so unstable.
Elara backed away, moving toward the edge of the roof. The wind was howling. She looked down. 9 floors to the pavement. There was no fire escape. No other door. She was trapped between the empty sky and the tenants. Mr. Abernathy stepped forward, his tweed suit flapping in the wind, his expression still blank and polite.
It is not a sacrifice, 7B. It is stewardship. The building requires a tenant to stabilize the wiring. An anchor. The previous 7B, he resisted. He burned out.
Mrs. Petrov opened the small wooden box. Inside, resting on dark velvet, was not a weapon, but a single, antique brass room key, identical to Elara's, but blackened and scorched.
He thought the current. It is so much easier if you simply accept.
Elara stared at the key. She finally understood. The corrections, the moved items, the locked door. It wasn't a haunting. It was a preparation. The building was trying to tame her, to make her passive before this ritual, to prevent her from burning out like the last one. She looked from the smiling tenants to the lone doorway. It was her only way off the roof. She did the last thing they expected. She didn't run away from them. She ran toward them. Elara sprinted, head down, directly at the doorway. The tenants raised their arms, surprised by her sudden aggression. She dodged Mr. Abernathy's grasp and dove headfirst through the portal, tumbling from the cold, windy roof back onto the warm carpet of her living room. She scrambled to her feet and slammed the door shut. The deadbolt, previously stuck, now slid home easily with a loud, satisfying thud. She was locked in, safe. She stood panting, her back to the door, for a full minute. The apartment was silent. She called the police. She told them her neighbors had threatened her, that they had somehow trapped her on the roof. She knew how insane it sounded. 2 officers arrived. They were polite, professional, and deeply skeptical.
Ma'am, we checked the roof access door. It's triple locked from the inside. No one has been up there in years. We also spoke to the landlord.
The tenants, Mrs. Petrov in 5A, Mr. Abernathy in 5C, they tried to...
The second officer lowered his notepad, his expression full of pity.
Ma'am, according to the owner and the city registry, you are the only registered tenant in the entire Ashworth Arms building. The other apartments are vacant. They have been for years.
Elara's blood ran cold.
That's impossible. I talked to them. I saw them.
The police left. They found no wires under her door, no scorched key, no sign of anything. They suggested she talk to someone. Elara was left alone in the silent, empty building. She knew what she saw. She knew what she heard. She grabbed her laptop and searched the city archives for Ashworth Arms. She found one entry from 1952, a fire. It had started in 7B, caused by faulty wiring. The entire 7th floor had burned. All the tenants listed, Mrs. Petrov, Mr. Abernathy and 2 others had died, trapped in the hallway, unable to escape. She realized the tenants weren't trying to sacrifice her. They were trying to save her. They were ghosts, stuck in a loop, trying to get her to accept her role as the anchor, to prevent the wiring from burning out again, just as it had for them. The building wasn't hungry. It was afraid. Elara packed her bags that night. She walked to the front door and paused. She looked at the deadbolt. It was unlocked. She hadn't touched it. She heard a faint sound from the kitchen pantry. That slow, rhythmic, the sound of the building's heart, waiting. She grabbed her suitcase, opened the door, and never looked back.